Leaving Alibaba to enjoy his newly acquired fortune, we will now return to the 40 thieves. They came back to their retreat in the forest when the time they had agreed to be absent had expired. But their astonishment was indescribable when they found the body of Kasim gone, and it was greatly increased on perceiving a visible diminution of their treasure. The captain suggested that they should chase after the other one who knew their secret. This proposal of the captain's was thought so reasonable that the whole troop approved it, and agreed that it would be advisable to relinquish every other enterprise, and occupy themselves solely with this affair, which they should not abandon until they had succeeded in detecting the thief. One of the robbers volunteered to know and find the other man, and willingly agreed to the terms, even if it will cost him his life. Amid the commendations of the captain and his companions, the robber disguised himself in such a way that no one could have suspected him of belonging to the nefarious trade he followed. He set off at night, and entered the city just as day was beginning to appear. He went towards the public bazaar, where he saw only one shop open, and that was the shop of Baba Mustafa.
My good man, you rise betimes to your work. How is it possible that an old man like you can see clearly at this early hour? Even if it were broad day, I doubt whether your eyes are good enough to see the stitches you make.
Whoever you are, you do not know much about me. Notwithstanding my age, I have excellent eyes, and you would have confessed as much, had you known that not long since I sewed up a dead body in a place where there was not more light than we have here.
A dead body? Why should you want to sew up a dead body? I suppose you mean that you sewed the shroud in which he was buried.
No, no, I know what I mean. You want me to tell you more about it, but you shall not hear another syllable.
The robber required no further proof to be fully convinced that he was on the right road to discover what he wished to know. He produced a piece of gold, and putting it into Baba Mustafa's hand,
I have no desire to cheat you of your secret, although I can assure you I should not divulge it even if you entrusted me with it. The only favor I beg is that you will have the goodness to direct me to the house where you sewed up the dead body, or that you will come with me and show me the way.
Should I feel inclined to grant your request, I assure you that I could not do it, and I will tell you why I must refuse. My employers took me to a particular place, and there they bound my eyes, and from thence I suffered myself to be led to the house. And when I had finished what I had to do, I was brought back to my own house in the same manner. You see, therefore, how impossible it is that I should serve you in this matter.
But at least you must nearly remember the way you went after your eyes were bound. Pray, come with me. I will put a bandage over your eyes at the place where you were blindfolded, and we will walk together along the same streets, and follow the same turnings, which you will probably recollect to have taken. And as all labor deserves a reward, here is another piece of gold. Come, grant me this favor.
I cannot positively assure you that I remember exactly the way they took me, but since you will have it so, come along. I will do my best to satisfy you.
the robber, who had his handkerchief ready, tied it over Mustafa's eyes and walked by his side, partly leading him and partly led by him, till Baba Mustafa stopped. They were exactly before the house which had once belonged to Kasim, and where Ali Baba now resided. Before taking the bandage from the cobbler's eyes, the robber quickly made a mark on the door with some chalk he had brought for the purpose, and when he had taken the handkerchief off, he asked Baba Mustafa if he knew to whom the house belonged. The cobbler replied that he did not live in that quarter of the town, and therefore could not tell. As the robber found that he could gain no further intelligence from Baba Mustafa, he thanked him for the trouble he had taken, and when he had seen the cobbler turn away to go to his shop, he took the road to the forest, where he felt certain he should be well received. Soon after the robber and Baba Mustafa had separated, Morgiana had occasion to go out on some errand, and when she returned, she observed the mark which the robber had made on the door of Ali Baba's house. She stopped to examine it. She therefore took some chalk, and as several of the doors on each side of her master's house were of the same appearance, she marked them in the same manner, and then went in, without saying anything of what she had done either to her master. The captain and the robber, who had been there in the morning, were the last to enter it, and the latter conducted the captain to the street in which he had marked the house of Alibaba. When they reached the first door that had been marked by Morgiana, the thief pointed it out, saying that was the one he had marked. But as they continued walking, the captain perceived that the next door was marked in the same manner, and pointed out this circumstance to his guide, inquiring whether this was the house or the one they had passed. His guide was quite confused and knew not what to answer, and his embarrassment increased when, on proceeding with the captain, he found that 4 or 5 doors successively had the same mark. He assured the captain with an oath that he had marked but one.
I cannot conceive who can have imitated my mark with so much exactness, but I cannot now distinguish my mark from the others.
When the troop had reassembled in the forest, the captain explained to them the reason why he had ordered them to return. The spy was unanimously declared deserving of death, and he agreed in his condemnation, owning that he should have been more cautious in taking his measures, and advancing with a serene face, he submitted to the stroke of a companion who was ordered to strike his head from his body. As it was necessary, for the safety and preservation of the whole band, that the great injury they had suffered should not pass unavenged, another robber, who flattered himself with the hopes of better success than had attended the first, presented himself and requested the preference. It has granted him. He went to the city, corrupted Baba Mustafa by the same artifice that the first robber had used, and the cobbler led him to the house of Ali Baba with his eyes bound. The thief marked the door with black chalk in a place where it would be less noticed, thinking that would be a sure method of distinguishing it from those that were marked with white. But a short time afterwards Morgiana went out, as on the preceding day, and on her return, the black mark did not escape her piercing eye. She immediately made a similar black mark on the neighboring doors. The captain, seeing his troop diminished by 2 brave associates, feared it might decrease still more if he continued to trust to others the discovery of the house where Ali Baba resided. Experience convinced him that his companions did not excel in affairs that depended on cunning, as in those in which strength of arm only was required. He therefore undertook the business himself. He went to the city, and with the assistance of Baba Mustafa, who was ready to perform the same service for him which he had rendered to the other two, he found the house of Ali Baba, but not choosing to trust to the stratagem of making marks on it, which had hitherto proved so fallacious, he imprinted it so thoroughly on his memory, by looking at it attentively, that at last he was certain he could not mistake it. He then told them in what manner he intended to conduct the affair, and as they all gave their approbation, he charged them to divide into small parties and go into the neighboring towns and villages, and to buy 19 mules and 38 large leathern jars for carrying oil, one of which jars must be full, and all the others empty.
My good friend, I have brought the oil which you see here from a great distance, to sell tomorrow in the market, and at this late hour I did not know where to obtain shelter for the night. It would not occasion you much inconvenience. Do me the favor to take me in, and you will confer a great obligation on me.
Although in the forest Ali Baba had seen the man who now spoke to him, and had even heard his voice, yet he had no idea that this was the captain of the 40 robbers, disguised as an oil
You are
merchant.
welcome. You are at liberty to do as you please. You have only to ask for whatever you may want, and all I have is at your service.
Thank you, my good friend.
The captain of the robbers then went to the stable of his mules to give his people the necessary orders for what they were to do. Beginning at the first jar and going through the whole number, he said to the men in each,
When I throw some pebbles from the chamber where I am to be lodged tonight, do not fail to rip open the jar from top to bottom with the knife you are, and come out. I shall be with you immediately afterwards.
Morgiana did not forget Alibaba's orders before he went to his chamber. She prepared her master's linen for the bath and gave it to Abdallah, who was not yet gone to bed. Then she put the pot on the fire to make the broth, but while she was skimming, the lamp went out. There was no more oil in the house, and she had not any candle, so she knew not what to do. She wanted a light to see the skim the pot, and mentioned her dilemma to Abdallah.
Why are you so much disturbed at this? Go and take some oil out of one of the jars in the court.
Morgiana thanked Abdallah for the hint, and while he retired to bed, she took the oil can and went into the court. As she drew near to the jar that stood first in the row, the thief, who was concealed within, said in a low voice,
Is it time?
She was instantly aware of the importance of secrecy and caution, and understood the extreme danger in which Ali Baba and his family, as well as herself, were placed. She also saw the urgent necessity of devising a speedy remedy that should be silently executed. She collected her thoughts, and without showing any emotion, assumed the manner of the captain and answered,
Not yet, but presently.
She approached the next jar, and the same question was asked to her. She went on to all the vessels in succession, making the same answer to the same question, till she came to the last jar, which was full of oil. Morgiana, by this means, discovered that her master, who supposed he was giving a night's lodging to an oil merchant, had afforded shelter to 38 robbers, and that the pretended merchant was their captain. She quickly filled her oil can from the last jar, and returned into the kitchen, and after having put some oil in her lamp, she took a large kettle and went again into the court to fill it with oil from this kettle. She immediately put upon the fire, and made a great blaze under it with a quantity of wood. For the sooner the oil boiled, the sooner her plan for the preservation of the whole family would be executed, and it required the utmost dispatch. At length the oil boiled. She took the kettle and poured it into each jar, from the first to the last, sufficient boiling oil to scald the robbers to death, a purpose she